We all remember Invader Zim as a sensory assault. The colors was harsh, the humor was abrasive, and the entire show felt designed to make you uncomfortable. But Zim wasn't just being weird for the sake of being weird. It was showing us a world that already collapsed long before the invader ever arrived. The first thing people miss about Zim is his cover story. He's supposed to be an undercover threat, but he doesn't hide. He screams, he overreacts, and bro always announces his superiority at the top of his lungs.
Ha! See ya, Dib! Pitiful human!
And somehow nobody cares. Now we look at season 1, episode The Nightmare Begins. Zim arriving on Earth acting mad suspicious while the world around him barely reacts. With real concern. This is the show's foundational joke, but it's also the darkest observation. Zim survives on Earth not because he's a genius, but because humanity is too exhausted and self-absorbed to stop him. The adults are checked out, the institutions are useless, and society is completely blind to a danger that's yelling in his face. Broken ecosystem is exactly why Dib matters. Dib isn't just a paranoid kid. He is the only person reacting to the world appropriately because he's the only one awake in a society of sleepwalkers. He looks insane. Season 1, episode The Nightmare Begins. Dib trying to expose Zim while his classmates treat him like a joke.
Talking about! He's here to conquer Earth!
Aw, not this again. You're crazy.
And he's got no ears! Is that part of your skin condition, Zim? No ears?
Yes.
Man, Dib, you think just because someone looks different, you can call them an alien?
I guess old kid's an alien too, huh?
How's it going?
This is where the show flips and the logic delivers a massive piece of social commentary. The person paying attention looks crazy. The alien causing the danger looks ridiculous, and the rest of the world just keeps moving. That's how real failing systems operate. They don't protect themselves by hiding the truth. They protect themselves by making the truth sound embarrassing. If you care too much, you are obsessive. If you sound the alarm, you're uncool. Now we look at season 1, episode Parent-Teacher Night. Adults failing to understand or respond to the obvious madness around them.
Try one of these cookies. My wife made them.
Thanks, Ted.
Who does your hair?
Hey, is your dad feeling well?
Yes, sir. He's perfectly fine.
As a kid, this dynamic just feels like a cartoon exaggeration. As an adult, it feels like a documentary. We know what it's like to live in a world where the loudest problems get ignored, where being right means nothing if nobody wants to hear it, and where the system designed to protect us are just running out the clock. Zim isn't the center of the show universe. He's just a center of infection. Earth was already rotten. Zim just showed up to play in the dirt. But carrying the weight of that takes toll, because in part 2, we need to talk about Dib. The show doesn't frame him as the triumphant hero. It frames him as the tragic consequence of being the only person who sees reality. The easiest way to misunderstand Invader Zim is to write Dib off as a paranoid conspiracy theorist. Kind of like that crackhead in the train station. Maybe he's not crazy. Maybe he's actually an FBI agent.
Nah, he's just crazy.
We call him obsessed because it's easier to admitting that he's the only one actually right. Dib isn't chasing fantasy. He is reacting with perfect accuracy to a world that punishes him for paying attention. This shifts his role from hero to something much more tragic. The person forced to carry the truth in a society that has already decided his voice has no value. We look at episode Dib's Wonderful Life of Doom. Dib realizing he's still the only one who sees how obvious Zim is.
Delicious! I'm normal! How am I still the only person to see Zim's an alien? I mean, come on! Come on!
The show doesn't isolate Dib because he's wrong. It isolates him because being right is secondary to being likable. Dib has the evidence, the instinct, and the urgency, but none of it survives the social filter. Once a group label you as the weird kid. Every truth you speak is filtered through that identity until the facts themselves start to sound like a punchline. This creates a brutal feedback loop. As nobody listens, it becomes more desperate. He pushes harder, speaks louder, and acts way more erratically. But in a world that values cool overcorrect, that intensity only makes him look less credible. Now look at season 1, episode Sad Tale of Chicken. Dib obsessively exposing chicken foot as a fraud because he needs the world to understand that paranormal investigators are not lunatics who believe anything.
See, Chewie, it's just a costume. Let us take it off before you make a total mockery of paranormal studies.
No, it's not true. It's impossible!
He's losing because truth without social capital sounds like a breakdown. He's fighting a culture that has made caring look embarrassing. And that isolation starts at home. Professor Membrane isn't just a distant father, he is the ultimate gatekeeper of sanity. Dib really trying to show his dad a real threat, while Professor Membrane casually writing him off as insane.
This picture shows something freaky and of some spooky alien origin.
I'll say it again. Those stations haven't been monitored for one simple reason. There are no aliens. None able to travel the massive distance to our planet anyhow. You've been watching those transmissions since you were a baby with an enormous head. It's time to move on, son. Real science.
People closest to you refuse to validate your reality. You stop sounding certain and start sounding unstable. You being over-explaining and over-performing just to be seen, which only completes the cycle of erosion. Dib isn't just facing rejection, he's facing the slow destruction of his own confidence. Ultimately, the show stops being about alien versus kid. It becomes more a story about awareness versus loneliness. Dib is the warning of what happens when you the only one awake in a room full of people who decided sleeping is cooler than waking up. Dib is literally inside the goddamn Matrix. I'm sick. But if Dib is the tragic cause of the truth, we have to look at Zim, because Zim isn't scary because he's a monster. He's scary because he is the perfect parasite for a world that can no longer tell the difference between a threat and a distraction. Because in part 3, we need to talk about Zim himself and why he's not really scary because he's powerful, but because he's perfectly fits in a world that mistakes noise for harmlessness. The scariest thing about Zim is not that he hides well, it's that he doesn't have to. The show proves it over and over that Zim's survival has nothing to do with master level deception and everything to do with social friction. He screams, build giant machines, and fundamentally fails to mimic human behavior, yet the world keeps spinning. This isn't because he's a genius, it's because he is the perfect villain for a society already conditioned to ignore whatever feels too strange to handle. Now we look at season 1, episode Bestest Friend. Zim wildly unnatural behavior while Keith or the other kids fail to react with urgency.
Hey!
Next, I test your electrical conductivity. And now, the final test.
Zim wins because he is miscategorized. People don't respond to him with fear. They respond to him with embarrassment or wow or mild inconvenience. In a world obsessed with coolness and normalcy, danger doesn't always win by being invisible. Sometimes it wins for being so ridiculous that nobody wants to take the social risk of looking unbalanced by taking it serious. This is the mechanical failure of the world authority figures. Zim creates obvious chaos, but the systems meant to protect us have a high threshold for what they consider real. Because Zim doesn't fit the convinced image of a threat. He slips through the cracks. Season 1, episode Career Day, Zim causing chaos doing a job assignment while the adults focus on bureaucracy of the day rather than the alien inside the room with them.
I know, little man. I feel your pain.
He isn't beneath notice, he's beneath urgency. We see the warning signs, the failing systems every day. We file them under not worth the effort, or nah bro, that is way too awkward to address. And that is horrifying genius of Invader Zim. It presents a reality where the more absurd something looks, the safer it actually becomes. Gur takes this idea and pushes it literally into the red. He is chaos without discipline, a walking disaster that should be impossible to ignore, yet he fits perfectly into the same environment. Invader Zim has shown us a world where dysfunction has become so widespread. Nobody's equipped to stop it socially, emotionally, or lawfully. Season 1, episode Germs. Zim and Gur escalating a situation into total catastrophe.
It's in the meat. Give me all the meat. How you doing?
This is the real horror. Zim technology and ambition aren't the problem. The problem belongs here is that the natural result of society that can no longer distinguish between absurdity and danger. When a world gets disconnected, it makes a fatal mistake. It starts mistaking collapse with comedy. In part 4, we have to talk about the final warning, not just about the aliens, but about what happens when the reset stops working. By the end of almost every episode, the meeting disaster is over, Zim plan fails, Dib is humiliated, and the world resets. On the surface, it feels like a return to normal, but that's when normal is the darkest thing about the show, because in this universe, nothing ever gets fixed. The laws stay broken, the adults stay detached, and the truth remains as a social embarrassment. The show never treats the reset as a victory, it treats it as stagnation. It's a world where survival is mistaken for success. This is why Dib victories feel so hollow. He can save the entire planet from being consumed, and by the next morning, he's still just a crazy kid in the back of the classroom. As an adult, this hit differently because we realize the show isn't about an alien invasion. It's about a systematic neglect. It's a culture where the person sounding the alarm is treated as the problem, while the person causing the damage is ignored, because dealing with him will require too much effort. Zim doesn't win because he's a master of disguise. He wins because he belongs in a world that has replaced empathy with distraction. The visuals are harsh and the humor is uncomfortable because the truth of the show is abrasive. In a broken system, being right does not make you a hero, it makes you a target. Invader Zim wasn't trying to be random or edgy, it was a world where awareness is a curse. It shows us that society doesn't collapse because of a single monster, it collapsed because it lost the ability to tell the difference between disaster and a joke. This is the final warning of the show. A world doesn't fall apart only because of a powerful villain. Sometimes it falls apart because nobody takes the ridiculous thing seriously until it's too late. The world will not be destroyed by those who do evil, but by those who watch them without doing anything.